Albert, we had this discussion when I made the reels about the turns. One of the comments that dragged my attention was that one guy said, okay, Albert says about the inside rein, but he actually is kind of using his outside rein also, things like that. The idea about focusing mainly on the inside rein, you believe that it really works like that? Or maybe it's because something else you are doing that allows you to control the outside? Or how you honestly think about what's happening when we turn a horse?
When we have the dominance of the outside rein, the dominance of the outside rein create a rigid horse. That is for 100%. Of course I use my outside rein because we use both reins, no? Mm-hmm. So when I start turning, it's my inside rein that says, for example, go left, and then my outside rein gives what my inside rein is asking. Then you are in a situation that the horse is losing his balance, either falling to the inside or either falling to the outside over the outside shoulder. Then I slow him down with both reins, maintaining inside flexion.
Okay.
Maintaining inside flexion. So at that moment I have an inside flexion because I turn. Then I slow him down, make him sit, rebalance the horse, soften both hands, go back to the pace I'm looking for. But what I don't do, I don't push my outside hand over the neck to turn, or I don't push my outside leg to turn. My leg I only use to go faster, nothing else. Never to turn.
You are never busy with driving the shoulders in or out in a turn.
No,
so
because
the legs for you it's forward and backward.
Yeah, and the thing is that the reason why I don't like it, because then we keep always carrying this horse, and I want the horse to carry me.
Very interesting.
For me today, that you say, you know, we always, what we said in the beginning in the ring, sometimes, you know, maybe out of instinct, or we do something without that we are aware of it to try to make things work. For me, a good example in the ring is a rider like Richard Vogel at the moment. He comes in the ring in a long rein, doesn't pull the head down, up, goes to the light seat, and he's fast. In general, when his horse jumps clean, he is very, very fast. Then you say, for example, Carrington, what is
Kent Farrington.
Kent Farrington, the name slip. He's more with the outside lane, and he's also very fast, using a total different technique than Richard Vogel, for example, that more or less is riding on a loose rein. I like more Vogel to see than Farrington. But then, when Farrington wins the Grand Prix, who's going to tell that Farrington is doing something wrong? And with everything that what we do, on which horse we sit, we can only win due to the quality of the horse we are sitting on. And that the horse that we are riding is accepting the method that we are using to achieve results.
Now you just talked about the horse's quality. I have a nice question. I see some riders that had not the opportunity to ride into very, very good horses or the great quality, and that they started, that including myself, to try to kind of create that quality, doing more. So in your opinion, whatever we do more, or to try to create some kind of respect or some kind of quality, in the end is worse for us and for the horse and for the rider, or for the whole thing?
What we riders believe in the beginning of our career is the harder we work in the saddle, that at least we have tried everything possible to make it work. But what we actually have done is to disturb the horse as much as we can. So when we are in the saddle and we can come to the point to disturb the horse as little as possible, we give the horse the opportunity to show the best of his natural quality. Now, when you have a horse that is not super careful, no matter what you do, the fence will go down anyway. When you ride him soft, the fence also goes down. On careful horses, the more beautiful you ride him, so you ride the perfect round, the more fences will go down. Because horses that are not careful, when we don't shock them on the way in the course, they fall asleep a little bit and they go ping pong boom, you know? Where top careful horses, when we really give them the most comfortable ride possible, the better and better they jump.
The quality shines and they...
Absolutely, absolutely. And for competition, at the end of the day, we need a horse that has the mind that the horse doesn't want to touch a fence. First. Second, then he needs to have the ability to jump the height that we want to jump. Then when we are on the day that I as a rider haven't done any mistake and my horse also didn't make a mistake, we have fantastic results. But how often do we say as a rider, was a bit close there. You should have given a little bit more leg there. How often do we say, wow, I rode so well. And the horse forgot to lift his leg a little higher. So, you know, the horse can make a mistake, we rode perfect, the horse jumped perfect, but we make a mistake. And then finally we come to the point where you say, wow, we both had it all together, and then we have a great result.
But for those cases that the quality is, let's say, medium, that is not a terrible horse, but also not so careful, in competition you believe that we can be like a bit not so much like that stylish and beautiful, but and also not shocking too much, but a little bit more rough, or it's part of the game, you think?
Yeah, it's part of the game. The moment that we go into the competition knowing that the horse is not as careful as we want it to be, the more surprisingly right we give him, the more he keeps his eyes open to stay out of trouble.
Protect a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Another thing is, we have to understand that we can only be competitive if the horse has the quality to be competitive. We then have to say, is this horse for what I want suitable? But that horse what for you does not give you the result we are looking for is a fantastic schoolmaster for a person that needs to learn to ride better. Mm-hmm. Because when we have top quality horses, they are too good for the person that needs to ride well, and they are not forgiving, they don't forgive, right? They need to be able to jump a fence down. But the horses that we need, they need to be so careful that for those riders they are unsuitable and they start to stop or they get afraid. Mm-hmm. So we always, as a rider, have to accept that the horse is only as good as it is. And our goal is, can we find finally that horse that when I ride perfect gives me the perfect ride and, you know, gives us the success that we are looking for. Mm-hmm. And that is where we as a rider, because we put so much work in it and all that, and then, you know, you have this beautiful round, one down, you know, but we have to understand that this may be a one downer.
Yeah.
You know, and that is where, but that comes with age, that we have to accept, you know, he's not better than he is.
It is like it is.
It is like it is. It is like it is.
About being competitive, as you said, as a horse builder, let's say when you build a horse from 4-year-old all the way, in your system, in your philosophy, do you allow yourself to try to win classes earlier or when they are still young, or you never try to win classes until the horse is finally produced? Or how do you deal with that, and how do you teach your students when to try to win a class?
Winning classes is part of the education of a horse. What you never do, you go into the red, you cross the red line. We have a sport in which it's you and your horse against the fences. It's not me and my horse against you and your horse. Because when your horse is naturally faster than mine, I cannot beat you. Only when you knock one down and I don't. But when I see you going fast, and I sit on a horse that is not as fast as yours, and I push my horse to be faster than you are, I cross the red line. And that is where mistakes come, for example. So what you do with your horse, to stay in the comfort zone of you and your horse, and you go as fast as you can in that comfort zone. What then makes you end up 5th, 6th, 3rd, right? When you never cross the red line, the horse never gets hurt. When you go over that line, we hurt either the mentality or the physique. In dressage, for example, if I want to be at the highest level in dressage, and I want to beat Isabelle Wert or Charlotte Dujardin, the only way I can beat her is that my horse in his movement is as good as hers. When that is not the case, I can never beat her. That is why in dressage it's me and my horse against the judge. I have, for example, a horse that in the Grand Prix Special goes 75%, not 80%. Then I have to try, can I increase my 75% to 76 or 77? Then already I win for myself, because I know that I cannot beat. Carthago cannot beat Shutterfly in normal circumstances, right? So that is what we as riders have to accept, and that is also with a young horse. What is important to know is that if you want to play the big game on a very high level, that this game starts physically and mentally for a horse that is 10, not 8 in top classes. But what riders do, or owners do, it is not only the rider's fault, it's not only the owner's fault, it's a fault of the two of them. How long do I want my horse to last? If I push my horse before he's 10, then at 12, without the veterinarian, he cannot do the job anymore. If I go slow, and I say, okay, he's 10, mentally and physically he's totally ready, then from 10 till he's 20, he has a period of 10 years that he can win the big money. So to go fast in the beginning is only to make the period after 10 very short. Financially and everything, I think it's not a very intelligent thing. You have riders that wanted to do, oh, we go like this, the owner buys a new one, or you're multi-rich. But even when you are multi-rich, to find that horse that wins the 5-star Grand Prix on a regular base, it's not so easy, eh? And then finally you have him, and what do? They try to rule him in as quick as possible. You know, that is, for me, is unbelievable. You go slow, and then after 10 you can say, okay. And then, 9 months of the year, you have the horse in training, and then 3 months of the year, no shows, that the body can recover, and so on and so on. Then you can, like Wellham, Vivaldi with Mr. Pessoa, wins the Derby of Hamburg. Wellham wins the Derby of Hicks that when they were 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and then they say, yeah, but there's too many shows, No, there are not too many shows. We show the horse too often. That is a total different thing. It's not the fault of the shows that the shows are there. You say, I have a horse. Whoa, he's very good. I want to maintain him as long as I can to the end of his career. So I show him so many shows in so many time, and rest in between, to extend his career as long as possible. But when you use him due to your own bad management, don't blame somebody else for it. It's your own management.
You just thought about honors in this process, and one thing that I remember hearing when I was younger is that I heard something like Albert Voorn is such a great rider. He could have had a better career if he was more cooperative or negotiating or a bit more flexible with honors. First, I'd like to know if this is true, if you were very strict or it's my way or no way, something like that. And secondly, I'd like to know if you sometimes, if that's the case, if you regret a little bit, you say, I should have been a little easier with honors and in general.
I was riding for an owner when I was very young, let's say in my beginning of my 20s. And this owner had financial problems and he said, Albert, I'm very sorry, I cannot continue anymore. And I said, okay, let me rent your stables. So I started on my own, and an owner shows up with very nice horses. And we buy a young horse, and I develop the horse, and the horse starts to come to the level of 1.40 meters. And I felt really for this horse, and he said, we can take him to Wiesbaden. I said, no, I'm not taking him to Wiesbaden because it's too early. You're going to take him to Wiesbaden. I said, I'm not going to take him to Wiesbaden. So I arrive in Wiesbaden without the horse. So the owner comes in Wiesbaden, where is the horse? I said, I told you that I'm not. And so he was very upset and this and that. From Wiesbaden we moved to Hamburg. And he was still upset about it and ta-ta-ta. And when you don't, then I'm going to sell my horses. And I said, go ahead. 25, my first owner. I said, I am Albert Voorn. I'm responsible for the well-being of that horse. If I ride him in classes where I think he shouldn't be ridden in, then I'm going to break him. And then I'm the cause that this career of this horse is not going how I think it should go. I was 25. Then I sell them all. I said, fine. So he sold them all to Harvey Smith, and my stable was empty. When you're a good rider, always you will get horses. And from any rider, your career goes up and your career goes down. I have a 100% respect for everybody. For me, mutual respect is the first thing in life. Doesn't matter who it is, mutual respect. One is not more than the other. It's not because you're a multimillionaire that you don't need the gardener to cut your grass, because if he doesn't come, you have to sit on the machine yourself. So everybody in the world has his part. What is important? If the garbage man doesn't pick up the garbage in front of the street, it's going to be a big mess. And he needs to be very well paid to do it, right? So sometimes people look down, or he's just a groom, or he's just this. Nobody is just, right? Then, so first that mutual respect. Then I give a 100% to achieve what we are looking for. Then when, in the relationship with the owner, I feel that the respect that I have for that owner is not mutual, then it breaks. And it doesn't matter if I then sit on the best horse in the world, it's fine, bye. Could I have been more successful when I would have been more flexible? Definitely. Would I be happier? No, not. Because the moment when you have to put yourself aside in your beliefs to achieve what you want to achieve, then you're not happy anyway. It's not about, at the end of the day, I consider myself as the most flexible person there is in the world. But I want that mutual respect. When I don't get it, then it's over and out.
You still can talk and discuss. It's not that you don't discuss about the program and so, but in the end you are the rider and you know when the horse is ready or not.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, let's say we have horses, we have people, riders make mistakes, horses make mistakes, and you know yourself. We are more often disappointed than that we are partying with champagne, because there are more fences falling down than they stay up. So you know yourself out of experience, and I don't think, but then suddenly we have that moment where the victory is there. We should enjoy it. And when the victory is not there, then we have to accept that is the case. When I'm passionate about horse racing, my horse is losing with the nose. Am I then disappointed? No. Wow, he was so competitive that he nearly won the race, Now I see in the racing, and then the owners had fantastic success with Paul Nichols, for example, and then suddenly this owner now takes all the horses away, and they won everything, and this man was 14 times champion trainer of Great Britain, and suddenly the horses go, well, what is this for bullshit? I said, this is disrespectful in my opinion.
Albert, about the auxiliary reins and material, you don't believe in any of them, like draw reins or gog and things like that? You don't need them in your system usually?
No, the only thing what I need is a side rein. Because what I like to do is that I copy as much as possible the contact from the hand of the rider with the mouse, and that is a direct contact. And any other thing is a sort of an indirect contact, or is not copying what I'm doing in the saddle. So for that reason, I don't use it, but I've used all of the things. But it didn't give me.
You had the conclusion that they are useless.
For me, yes.
For you.
But then somebody else is using it and they win whatever. For them it's good. In my system, no, I don't need it. No.
What are your bits? Your basic bits collection?
When we start a horse green for the first time, a bit in the mouth is a soft, straight rubber bit that you can. And then when that bit after a while would be not strong enough, because on straight bit horses intend to lean a little bit, normal, simple broken snaffle. From there to a Waterford. But when the horse is very well educated from the beginning, normally you don't go any further than a normal snaffle, But in my career I rode a lot of horses on an older age that then were not going so well, not listening so well or whatsoever. Then you go automatically to a stronger bit than double wire, because I want them to listen. The Pessoa bit or the gag and the double bridle, and that's it. Okay. But it's also a very personal thing. If you see riders that very often ride on a Pelham and that Pelham goes for that rider very well, it's fine. I never had success. You have riders that ride a lot with Heckamore. I couldn't even turn with them. Fine, but for me it didn't work. No.
It's not something that you forbid your students, but if it works and you like what you see, it's fine.
Any bit that works for the rider that rides that particular horse, it's fine. As long as the bit that we use avoids physical strength.
One friend of mine was asking, when we talked about frames and so on, he told me, I really want to know from Albert what he thinks about this, when people ride in that lower frame, that the horse extends the head. Stretching without the head really going down, but down in the attitude, stretching attitude. You like to use that kind of attitude? How often? And is that interesting?
I never ask it.
Okay.
Today I was training Tamara, and I was in Rome this weekend, and they brought it up, the stretching. We are always trying to stretch a horse before the horse physically and mentally is ready to do so. Because all the horses at the end of the work drop their head down to the ground and you can ride them with the buckle in your fingers. So I wait for that moment to happen. And it always happens at the end of your work. But when you say I start the warming up with it, definitely not. Because it's against the way the horse naturally functions. Let's say you put him in a round pen, you let him go loose. The head is up, go left, right. And then, you know, he canters and he boxes and he plays and and after 50 minutes, the head goes down. Down, down, and then you work him a bit more and more, and the head goes more down, and then you say, after that you say, now he trots a bit, and he goes with his nose over the floor, so he's stretching himself, but at the end of the work. And what we always want is to make it happen before the horse is physically ready to do so. Then I'm against it.
And when horses that are too short in the neck, maybe because sometimes happens because of the previous rider, or I had also horses that maybe just because they are trying to go behind the leg or the connection. But my question is, when they want to put the head too much down and too short in the neck and you don't want that, do you try to solve that also with bits, or you try to solve only with the riding?
Only with the riding, yeah. Because the bit only comes in place when, for example, they are too strong.
You never like to think about bits on how they are going to frame themselves, because I see a lot of riders and maybe also myself sometimes thinking about how is going to be the round frame or the roundness of the jump or things like that. Horse, they jump round when they have quality?
Fantastic example. I rode one of the best horses I ever rode in my life, Jules Amethyst. And I had this horse so well educated that, you know, like every time you were riding it, it was like a big smile on your face. And very often I had one rail behind. How is it possible that the horse is so well ridden and then he gets a fence behind? And then I'm very much in favor of loose jumping in a combination, because it gives you information about the horse naturally jumps. And I said, I need to loose jump him because I need more information. And he was jumping and he was nearly like jumping upside down. But he came never close with his legs. It was a bit of a slow motion, but he never made a mistake behind. So I said, I make him loose jump. So who's the problem? Me in the saddle, not him, because he jumps without. I never ever ask his head down anymore. He never ever knocked one fence down behind. So this sort of horses that I rode, and that you look, how, you know, am I causing the problem or is it? And then you go like, wow. And then you see that's how he jumps, upside down. And then we say, because we as a rider, this is a sort of a drug, that feeling when the horse hits the ground, jumps like this, and you go, wow, you want to feel that all the time, right? This feeling we get the best when the horse in the approach to the fence and the moment of taking off is very soft and doesn't pull, and we have a soft feeling. So that the body is totally soft, that gives him the opportunity to use his body like he wants it, and it hits the ground. But then on top of the fence, the majority does this. Then a lot of riders says he needs to jump rounder, so we hold him rounder, and then they have to put back boots on to put his hind legs up. And if you let him go, they do this, and the back is up. So finally, we as a rider, no matter who you are, no matter how we ride, at any time, if you're Albert Voorn, if you're John Whittaker, if you're Rodrigo Pessoa, if you're Frank de Sloothaar, in the saddle, we disturb. Because we always do something that we shouldn't have done. So the goal of us in the saddle, can we disturb the horse as less as possible? And no matter who you are, the success comes due to the fact that the horse has the quality to do what we want to do and that he accepts our system of training.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Albert.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate your time and your enthusiasm giving me this interview.
Super.